Yul Brynner stars in MGM, draw. A simple order given in a flat tone with no feeling. And right at that moment Westworld breaks apart totally. At this moment the idea that this was ever a time off. I can still remember the picture of the gunfighter standing still in the street was full of dust, his gun slowly rose, as if it were a process. Programmed a long time ago. It's really scary, there is certainty in the air. It's over. And the rules have been broken. However, the more I watch Westworld, the more I see that the movie was never real. I do with machines. It's about a world where people pay to avoid getting in trouble. They give you real guns. Oh, okay, guns. A place where killing is fun to do, having sex is a job, the trip of the future right now. The bots can look, move, talk, and even bleed. The same way people do. All of this can be erased. 2. You can begin again. A movie made before stars in Star Wars, but one that created doubts that sci-fi still doesn't have dared to answer directly to this day. Here are 15 facts that quietly turned the 1973 Westworld into a nightmare that won't go away. 15. Disney World. When a bad dream comes true from the most secure spot. Remember what it was like to see Westworld for the first time? A theme park from the future, clean, beautiful, and started with a soft voiceover that sounds like an ad for travel. Everything feels familiar, almost comfortable, like the real thing. Fun places for life, safe and supervised, and made so that bad things can't happen. That feeling of being at home is exactly what makes people forget that Westworld began in a very real place, Disney World. Yes. What the book was about. Michael Crichton went to Disneyland. It wasn't the castles or flames, but pirates of the West Indies. They were moving easily, they talked normally and did what they did again, they didn't miss a beat. Not real enough to be just robots that are too obedient to raise off suspicion. Even more so because of Crichton felt uncomfortable about that. He asked, what if these robots didn't do that? Not if they got smarter. Not if they stopped it, they fought back because they knew themselves, but what if they kept doing the same thing? They can't do what they were made to do anymore for people, and Crichton understood this. Wasn't supposed to be in a book. Pictures, nothing, and blank faces. Westworld was aimed right at the viewers. Hence it was born as a visual experience where people who go into a park have absolute violence as wrapped up as innocency and extra service. Looking back, this was the first drawing of Jurassic Park, a high-tech park for the rich and famous. Control system fell apart, and the attractions that turn on the guests. Only thing that makes Jurassic Park different is we're dinosaurs, and Westworld were robots. Set up to please people, and that is scarier by a lot. 14. Yulbryn, when the sign of death without feelings comes from desperate. I'll never forget the picture of that gunman stepping into the empty street. A straight line, a black hat that split his face in half, the sound of steady walking on dry ground. I couldn't name the at the time. It was just that every time he showed up, the movie suddenly felt. Plus, when I found out that Yul Brynner took the part because it was good for his business, the picture got even worse as it faded. Scary. When shooting began, Brynner was at the worst point of his job. There are no big projects or tempting deals. It was getting late, and money was running out. Pay was a lot less than it was during the golden years. He still accepted, not because he thought the story was good, Booth did it because he had to. In that case, a cold figure was made. The gunslinger doesn't have any famous conversation, no reason, and no explanation moment. He just walks, stops, and bends over. Gun, and it goes on. The outfit Brynner wears is almost he is a great fit for the part of Chris in The Magnificent Seven. A lot of people saw these as a wink to the past, but there's a reading that was harder. Westworld was recycling Hollywood turned old, terrible stories into the irony of a killing machine with no feelings. That a job that was taken because of money, and despair became the model for modern bad guys. John Carpenter drew taking ideas from The Gunslinger to Arnold, make Michael Myers. Schwarzenegger took on the same air of authority. For The Terminator. A robot look that came from reluctance was taught that the scariest death in movies is the one that doesn't need a reason. 13. Random hiring. When the main characters are picked because no one else did. If the shooter is the dream, then John and Peter are the only ones who can hold. The public has, and ironically, these important jobs almost didn't exist in any way that makes sense. The original short the list was full of well-known people, John Voight, and Elliot Gould. But one by that one, they dropped out. Problems with pay, disagreements, or just to not believing in a weird sci-fi story western that no one thought would work. There was a time when everything seemed got a deal with Captain William Shatner. Kirk was cast as Peter Martin. Now the studio did some rough math. If Yul Brynner was going to stay the hottest star, the other two leads were too strong to hide. Everything was dropped for him. It was getting late, so time was running out. The directors picked young actors with a choice that has less shine and is almost anonymous. Born out of necessity, but by chance it's not true that John and Peter are heroes. These people aren't very smart. They don't have a big plan. Everyday people who enter a world. I said I would be safe, but I found out that promise doesn't come with a way out, and since they're not unique, The hunt that comes next becomes really scary. Westworld doesn't kill, it hurts people who are truly special. They thought they were just taking a break. Westworld shows how the times were sexual obsession that is extremely dirty. Something is off about today. I'm watching Westworld again. Is in shock. It's comfort. A closeness that makes you feel bad. Scenes of robots that are meant to help when guests' sexual urges aren't met. In the 1970s. Now they look like rough, raw early version of what the internet has accepted, and that's exactly what it is. A roughness that makes them stick around. Westworld never tries to hide the fact that robots are used for sex. Don't use figures of speech, no excuses, and no romance glitz. There's no need for consent because the robots are set up to answer yes from the beginning. For the guests, it's not a crime, it's a service, paid for in full. The important thing is how Kitty films these. He doesn't film them like the softcore propaganda movies or common ath time. His camera is cold and far away. Robotic bodies are almost not caring. Framed like things. Motions are. The lighting is flat, and it is automated, not a single plea for pleasure, and what feeling is left is emptiness. Westworld says what life was like back then. Wouldn't listen. When desire is fulfilled, no less power, it doesn't get freer or more freeing. It changes shape, not because wanting something is bad in and of itself, but because it doesn't face anything else subject. There are no limits or effects. Westworld doesn't say no or criticize guests through conversation or moral lessons. It just shows an unpleasant truth. Sex is born of absolute power, always takes the form of violence, no matter how high class with a name on it. And when the robots don't give up, the biggest fear is and they kill people. It's that they don't want to keep being toys. 11. The killing of Richard Benjamin lesson that said not to blink. People remember Peter's eyes when he takes the gun apart. Not a single act of bravery or determination is shown. A stiff, wide-eyed look as if the body is trying to keep up with something the mind hasn't fully accepted that feeling yet. Not by chance, and it's not just getting ready for the part. Richard Benjamin did his training with a changed revolver, not to make it shoot better, but to get rid of expectation. Uneven loads were put on the chambers, and without warning, so every pull of the trigger held a different option. It has no rhythm or safe response, it's only real of the result. Benjamin doesn't know. Don't blink when he fires. Not because you're brave, but his brain can't come up with the order on time. His body learns to not fight the loss of power. The camera clearly records it, not used to violence, pushed to take part in it to stay alive. It's a small thing, but it fits perfectly. Peter doesn't turn into Westworld's spirit. An outlaw who doesn't level up. Just learns how to get through the next moment. Getting through the movie doesn't come from skill, but from being able not to give up too soon out of fear. Westworld it doesn't teach people how to fight. Displays what takes place when someone is put in a situation where all of your senses are useless, and sometimes life just isn't possible. Fanning out. 10. Real crashes on set when really falls apart. Do you remember that shot? Get it, when James Brolin's character hesitates, moving a little slower than the beat of the movie? A flash of fear in his eyes, a sharp breath, and a face for a moment messed up and too short to be a conclusion, but too real to be playing. If you may have seen Westworld more than once. Felt like something wasn't right about that scene since they don't know why. The reason is it was easy. Things had gone besides the script. While shooting, James Brolin was bit by a real snake, not a fake one. Not a trick from the movies, but a real prop snake. Real teeth cutting through. The crew thought the safety padding was enough. The pain is felt right away. Picture keeps going off of his face. That scene stayed in the movie, not because it looked nice, but it wasn't fake because it couldn't be done. Not saved either. In a different scene, he was a blank round hit him in the eye. His hurt was bad enough that he could not wear the robot contacts any longer. As planned from the start. The plan had to be changed, and scenes were set up so the shooter could avoid by staring straight into the camera. Just by chance, this made the figure even more empty and cold, a killing machine that didn't need to look at you. Toskery. The irony is that these real accidents in real life made Westworld more being true to its own message. Shows a park that is advertised as perfected safe where all the risks have been figured out, but when the control system falls, pain shows up right away, and it's raw and out of the blue. The Westworld set played out that exact situation, not because they are mean, but just because they put too much faith in their safety measures. They failed, and what was left wasn't not a moral lesson, but a way to stay alive. Clearly seen on the actors' faces. 9. Cinematography and other technical big steps forward. When the future is built, I still remember leftovers. Westworld has a unique sense of making things up, the strangely clean streets in the West, the bars that feel strangely familiar, and no proof of what the future holds that doesn't feel futuristic at all. Thought about. It's the result of a very sensible choice was made. Westworld was shot on the back lot of MGM just before the set was taken down. Most of the costumes and the props were left over from decades ago. Crichton didn't try to hide, even in westerns. He was interested in this and leaned into it. The park looks like it's from the past again, cleaned up and sold to wealthy people again, tourists. The movie was shot quickly in only 30 days. No reshoots unless something goes wrong. Necessary at all times. Crichton wanted everything needs to work like Delos itself, efficient, cost-effective, and emotionless, but even with that thriftiness, Westworld made a big technical step that people will remember. Was the very first movie to use digital image processing to show from the gunslinger's point of view. Noisy, blocky, and distorted pictures, by today's standards, it was shocking at the time, but not because they were pretty, but because inhuman. For the first time, people saw more than just a robot. Seeing the world through the eyes of a machine. The Delos is another interesting fact. A promotional movie that starts Westworld was added at the last minute in after the surgery. So, here are some of the comments of the folks who came back from Delos. Would you please make plans to take our hovercraft to the Middle Ages, the Roman Empire, the world, and Westworld? It does more than just describe the setting. Makes people feel like they're not really safety before everything falls apart. Then there's a detail that now seems both funny and scary. Westworld as the year 1983 is coming up, the year Return of the Jedi was released, and also the year the park's robots you should start killing guests. Turns out, always arrives sooner than expected and is often built from old parts. 8 deleted scenes when Westworld was once far more brutal. If you've ever felt that Westworld has added rhythm, fast, abrupt, sometimes as if it's missing a breath, you're not wrong. The film isn't the original version. It's a trimmed one. Crichton initially shot Westworld with a completely different opening and ending. It was longer, more violent, and more direct. But during editing, he realized something. If there was too much, the audience wouldn't have time to feel fear. They would simply watch. A number of scenes were cut. A long, chaotic bank robbery. Extended chases that ended in exhaustion. A robot tearing a guest's arm apart. Even Roman soldiers tossing people into a pool for sport. These scenes weren't removed because they were too graphic, but because they were too heavy. They turned Westworld into a straightforward horror film. While Crichton wanted something colder, frightening in a slow, inescapable way. Some of this footage survived in 1970s TV versions where censorship was oddly more permissive. But the theatrical cut today is the result of restraint. Westworld chooses not to show you everything. It lets imagination do theirest. And sometimes what was cut what makes the movie more it's scary because you've seen it before there, but not long enough to stay. 7th, the gunslinger. The picture of violence that can't be avoided. Bad guys you can talk to. Can convince, bribe, or take attention away. Gunslinger isn't one of them. Start. Michael Crichton planned I took away everything from this character. That could make him human. One thing that Gunslinger doesn't do is preach a set a goal. He doesn't have a big plan. Doesn't need to keep the future safe. Not logical and doesn't need a reason, he just keeps going. This is what makes him different from Thane Terminator later. The Terminator has a goal, a timeline, and a reason. Gunslinger doesn't. He's a process. Athit doesn't care who gets hurt. Some people don't like you because of this. Some people see the Gunslinger as a sign of violence in the system. A power machine without any anger, hate, or emotion, negotiating or breaking down anything not as strong as it is. You can't beg, you can't give an explanation or give in.so. Westworld doesn't tell a story about people versus machines. Tells a story about people facing a type of violence that doesn't need areas to live, which is why the gunslinger is a lot scarier than bad guys that can talk. 6. The gunslinger and the creepy shadow of the beautiful 7. And if the gunslinger he looks familiar, and that's not by chance. Outfit is almost an exact copy of Chris. Yul Brynner played the part of in The Magnificent Seven 1960. The same black, the same clothes, hat, and stance. Chris was a hero and a sign of being a man and having clear morals, a stand for law and order in the Old West. It's the same picture after 13 years, once a man, now a killer. This is both honor and a mean joke. Westworld, based on Hollywood's famous story, offers it and takes away its soul. No morals or ideals, just the silhouette and the gun. People they saw more than just a robot. The messing up of movie memories itself. An old hero coming back not to Westworld so to save someone, but to hunt. Asks a mean question. What happens when people who were once praised are turned into tools? Violently repeating behavior that has no moral basis. There's a gun on the gunslinger. Kill movie characters. The idea that violence was ever good, and that could be Westworld as the most deadly shot. bites Michael Crichton and the sci-fi movie he never meant to make. A lot of people don't know that Westworld is proof that a movie wasn't born, not out of passion but because they had to. When the project began, Michael Crichton was the movie will make money at the box office, but over time, the sci-fi king history honor him. He was a doctor who wrote books and had just shot a short film scene from a TV movie. Crichton Teen Cupid was made by Paul Lazarus III and the two quickly lined up. They planned to make more important and dangerous, but only a lot of the time, details are missed. Did not want his first movie to be he likes science fiction. Easily misunderstood, and often written off as cheap entertainment that is known for hard to keep up intellectually really bad. Even worse, the Westworld script was turned down over and over after studio went by. Why is that? It was too risky and hard to sell, only MGM agreed, and that was the company, known for being too strict with creative interfering with. There was a pause. Crichton had heard enough. Terrible things that directors lose taken charge. The lucky break was the executive producer of MGM told Crichton full freedom to be creative. And maybe that very little hope was saved. Crichton didn't try to make Westworld any better. He wrote big, exciting sci-fi. Something cold, dry, and bare futuristic glitz, more like a surgical process than a dream of technology. Because of this, Westworld doesn't fetishize. There is a lack of trust in machines. Have faith in the future. Be wary of promises. Here's the paradox: sci-fi movie made by someone who didn't. If you want to make sci-fi one of the four. The most clear-eyed works in the genre. Gunslinger only goes after Peter, and that's all. It wasn't a mistake. Did you see it? Everything falls apart, and the gunslinger don't go after both men. He doesn't care about John. One that is hostile, one that is proactive, the one ready to fight. Instead, he focuses on Peter alone, a choice so cold that it makes Peter nervous. Peter is scared, so he runs away from him. Thinks. In the system's language, he's easy prey because he's not a threat or an enemy, just what's left. Many people saw this as a dramatic choice, but when you look more closely, it stands to reason something doesn't have to use machine logic. Get rid of the strongest first. Takes out the weakest because they're the most effective way to keep power on. It's not that the gunslinger hates Peter. Not even know who he is in an emotional sense. Peter is just the easiest piece of data to work with. That's why the chase is important. A scary thing. It's not personal. Because of this, Westworld isn't telling a story about a gem. Telling a tale about being picked by not because you want to break a system. You did something wrong, but you're not as hard to crush as other people. Point 3. A sci-fi movie that doesn't have Anya's sense of victory. The only thing Westworld is a quiet Peter makes it through, but no one else does. People would call it a win.no redemption, no system reset, and no moral lesson taught in a friendly and reassuring way voice. Peter isn't smarter. He doesn't get stronger and it makes Hollywood sense. He just leaves and there you have it. Westworld breaks one of the deepest rules of American filmmaking. Being alive does not mean you won. Being alive only means that it wasn't your turn. Still, the system is still there, tools are still being used, and there's no promise that it won't happen once more. It's a sad ending, but Westworld doesn't say that. But this one does. Want you to feel better when you leave. Wants you to carry a question and the feeling that you've just stepped out of something far bigger than you are. Point 2. When the follow-up tries to explain if everything fails, there's an unwritten rule in movies. When a movie too many open ends, the follow-up will try to fill them up. Future World 1976 is an example from a textbook. The follow-up movie shifts focus to conspiracy and cloning world leaders and politics around the world using tricks, more ambitious, bigger, and culled in a way that leaves you empty. Crichton wouldn't take part. Yul Brynner shows up for a short time. The result is a confusing movie that is not like the original spirit and a big failure. The 1980 The TV show didn't do any better. The world grew, but the obsession didn't. It went away so much that when HBO's the 2016 remake was a hit, but the first one creator admitted that he may have watched it because this was known. Westworld doesn't need more information is needed. It lives on ambiguity, and every effort to make things clear it makes the story even worse. The release and legacy are still up in the air. Unanswered. Westworld was first shown in August 1973. This movie made over $10 million at the box office, $13 million. It was MGM's biggest hit of that year, and it came with an novelization that stays more true to Crichton's original idea. Now, Westworld it's a classic in the sci-fi genre. There has always been fun in it. Things that are very old, like slavery, abuse, power, and class. Robots are forced to give in to every want from violence against flesh for the rich idea device called entertainment. And the movie never gives a straight answer. Did the bots rise up, or did the system wake up on its own? Does it have consciousness or just logic working the way it was supposed to? That might be why Westworld is so confusing. It still stands, but not as a prediction about technology, but as a mirror. one in that people see themselves in the way they make systems and then abuse them. Think of as not living. When we think about Westworld in 1973, it's not robots that scare me the most. Killing people or technology falling behind. I feel like I have no control over things. Being familiar, everything in the movie is meant to assure people they are safe, in charge, scripted, and clearly limited. And then little by little, those defenses fall, but not because of rebellion, because the system works just like it was made to. How about you? Which part stood out the most? What did Westworld do for you? Leave a comment below and don't forget to click like. Please share and subscribe for more videos.